Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Mavens of Data. We've got a really fun show for you today. Should help a lot of people in the audience. We are going to be talking about Excel as the ultimate data analysis tool. Let's introduce our guests. We've got Sonali and Chris here. Sonali, if you could say hi to the audience and give us a little quick background, that'd be great.
Of course. Hello, audience. Hi, I'm Sonali. I work as a HR analyst. I've been in this space for about 4 years. I come from a liberal arts background, so I'm also a pivoter into the data field or into the tech field. One of the reasons why I use Excel, or even started out with Excel, because it was the easiest tool to transition from. And I'm really excited to be here and share that journey with you guys. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sonali. Chris, if you could do the same, say hi to the audience and tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Chris French. I'm a senior analyst over at Spring Health. I come from background of teaching, also sports. I went to school for education, found my way through multiple different industries, always felt that data analytics was right for me. Excel has been my number one tool through all the journey, especially from the beginning up till right now. So I'm just really excited to talk about the tool and how it's really helped me go from being even using it as a teacher to using it right now as a senior analyst.
Awesome. Thank you guys both for being here. Here are some of the main topics that we're going to get into in today's show. Sonali, let's start with you. What do you think makes Excel such a good, versatile tool for data analysis professionals?
Yeah, I think one of the main reasons why you see it everywhere is because it's so easy to adapt. And I think we also need to recognize that a lot of companies are probably still just adapting, if not companies, but some teams are still just starting out in their data maturity journey. And a lot of stakeholders that you have are way more comfortable using Excel because that's what they're used to. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why no matter what job you do in terms of data analytics or any data related jobs, that's going to be the tool that you're going to come across. And it's so easy to learn, especially if you come from a non-technical background like I did, and so did Chris.
Yeah, that's awesome. Chris, I'd love to hear from you. Was when you started to pivot into analysis, was Excel the first thing that you went with, or did you start somewhere else?
Yeah, so I know that kind of start from the very beginning, even before teaching. When I was running like a baseball training facility, all of our stuff was in Excel. I mean, we were just a small little facility. We were not having any crazy technical tools with us. But of course, once you get any computer, you get Excel downloaded with it. So of course, we all have Excel. So we're like, okay. For a lot of work we did, we could accomplish that in Excel, whether they're budgeting, come up with our expenses, sales, anything really to do with that. Excel was perfect for it. And I really liked it because, as Sonali said, the simplicity. I could go in there right away and, start making any report I want. It's also very helpful with the formulas to kind of give a description when you're writing out formulas, stuff like that. So help me understand and learn at the same time. So Excel was great because I could just get on it, access it, and I could send it to anyone. And as long as you have a computer, you most likely have it already on your computer already downloaded. So I just found it to be very simple. Just its biggest thing is just the simplicity is just what won me over, especially from the beginning.
Yeah, that's awesome. It was my first stop as a data analyst too, was to kind of learn Excel and get good with Excel. And I was not like a computer science person. I didn't consider myself a coder. I definitely would give myself the non-technical designation, more of a business person or a wannabe business person at the time, trying to just figure it out. And Excel was really surprisingly non-intimidating, I think, compared to a lot of other things. So I love that as a first stop. I'd love to hear from each of you guys, and maybe Chris, we can start with you on this one. What are some of the things that you do with Excel on the job today? Like some examples.
Ooh, that's a good one. So especially with this new job I have, it's very Excel driven. A lot of things to do. It's so much different than my other couple jobs I've had where we've used a little bit of everything. This one's very spreadsheet heavy. And the biggest thing with this is because it's in so many different areas, it's just being able to use, for example, Power Query is what I'm using that like crazy because we got sources come from different Excel files. We have PDFs coming in. There's some servers we have that's coming in from SQL databases. So I'm like, okay, what's the best way to use this? And when I really dove into Power Query a lot. I'd say it was about like a year and a half ago. I really dove into a lot more. You could do almost like 90% of your work could be done just using Power Query and Excel. So it was just so great to see that. And I think that also helped a lot because of using other tools, just learning, at least understanding how they work and how Power Query comes in. But I'm using Power Query a ton to connect a bunch of data sources, clean them up, using what I need, because I work for pretty much like a startup. You're not going to get the cleanest data, that's for sure. You're not going to get the cleanest data. So be able to use Power Query to get it connected, clean up the best way. And that's where I'm doing a lot of my reporting and trying to figure out ways to automate as much as possible, because we're growing as a company. We have a lot of work on our plate. So I'm just trying to think, how could I enhance, but also automate for future use.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the plug for Power Query, especially. It's such a game changer for Excel. I started my career largely with Excel, and then I learned SQL because I started to need to do relational database things, and Power Query, I forget if it was just barely out or not quite out yet, but I think if Power Query had been popular when I made that pivot, I may have never learned SQL, because it is such a great tool, and it works so well with Excel, with Power BI. So that's a great plug. Sonali, how about you? What are some of the things that you're doing day to day with Excel?
I'm going to try to summarize it the best way possible. When it comes to using Excel in my role, like day to day, it's mostly like the ETL process. So extracting data from the data source. So I work mostly specifically with like HR data sets. So like stored in Workday or things like Avature or any other HRS system that companies may have. So extracting data from there. And as Chris mentioned, a lot of data cleaning that happens within Excel. And I am also going to saying being able to use Power Query, because a lot of the data cleaning process, they're very redundant, especially if you're pulling the data on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. You already know what steps you need to clean up. So use Power Query to be able to automate that process so you don't have to manually go in and do it. Beyond that, after the transformation part, like I'm able to load that and create visualization. I also do dashboards within Excel, which I find that to be the most fascinating thing ever, because when you're looking at Excel, or when I first started, I did not know what Excel was capable of. And I think a lot of people go into it with that perception, thinking that you only do sums, averages. That's what I thought we only did, because I didn't know anything beyond that. But also learning how to create not just static dashboards, but also being able to do interactive dashboards, and they're able to change based on the values that you feed it. I think it's capable of so much more than we give it value. So also a plug there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's really like sky's the limit in terms of what you can do if you want to go really deep down the rabbit hole and get into, like you said, like dynamic dashboards with drop downs that can change the data, can almost replicate a lot of the things that like a Power BI could do. So that's fantastic examples. How about let's stick with you, Sonali, and think about if somebody is learning Excel for the first time with the goal of being a data analyst. What are some of the first things that you would recommend they kind of dive into, like day one, week one, month one? Where would they focus?
Oh, okay. I can tell you where I started was learning how to do sums and averages. So the basic aggregation functions. I assume that's what you're asking. So I'm going to answer based on that.
Yeah.
Sums and averages, and afterwards kind of shift into like the VLOOKUPs formulas or XLOOKUP formulas, and then move into pivot tables. That's what helped me. And I think just an overarching theme, no matter what you're learning, but in this case, Excel, start with a project before you start with what formulas that you want to learn. Have some questions in mind, and then extract the data set and see how you're going to answer those questions. What helped me was being able to look up like, oh, this is what I'm trying to do, Googling, but now you can use ChatGPT, which is going to be way more efficient. So telling ChatGPT what exactly you're trying to solve, and then it will break down what formulas would be more efficient for you. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. If you messed up, all you need to do is just close the tab and start over. That's what I did, because I was so afraid of permanently messing up the data set. But this is also when I was practicing. So start there.
Awesome. Yes. Yeah. Save early and often, have different versions, keep the original somewhere for sure. Yeah, it's great. And I love that you brought up ChatGPT. I want to put a pin in that, and let's come back, and I'd love to dive into AI in a little bit. But Chris, I'd love to hear anything else, like for an early Excel learner, any other areas that you think to add to what Sonali said?
Yeah, and I think her advice was spot on, because as I've as years has gone on, I've realized also my advice has changed. I think because I just have realized so many more situations that have came up. And as Sonali said, when it comes to the formulas part, a lot of times, even right now, even over the last week or two, I've used certain formulas I would have never used before just because of the situation. So I think like don't force yourself to use some of these parts of Excel if you don't have to. So I think yes, doing like things like projects are great because you're going in there to learn how to analyze more than force yourself to use certain tools. But what I learned from my first job, I had a senior analyst. I looked at him kind of like a mentor. He said like the biggest thing for anyone is being able to connect and look up information. So lookup formulas, as Sonali said, being able to use XLOOKUP, VLOOKUP, index match, all that stuff is incredibly important because if you're able to do that, your value just goes through the roof. Because I feel like most people could use some average, all that stuff, because that kind of can translate to most other tools, and just naturally we would think of those words to fit that situation. But to understand like the more complex formulas, like some if statements and lookups, be able to create conditions and connect data and stuff like that is what really makes you the most valuable. So that's why I made that my main focus was how could I bring value and also, to focus on the analysis part, not so much force myself to do things that don't have to be done. I feel like that could apply for most things, but it's like just do what's needed. And there will be a time in the future where you're going to use something else. Like you're going to need a pivot table for this. You're going to need to make a visual for this. You're going to need to use a crazy if statement for this because of something you're looking for. But it all comes down to your mindset and what you need to do in that current moment more than anything else.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love two things that you guys both had in your answer. One was make it project focused. I think doing that it just makes the information so much more concrete and more likely to stick. And then also more likely to be able to apply it to a future business problem that's potentially similar, at least somewhat related, And then the other piece I think both of you guys touched on was it used to be Google. If you ask somebody, 2 years ago, they'd say, what happens when you get stuck? Get really good at Googling. Now it's kind of a toss-up. Some people still like Google a lot. A lot of people are asking ChatGPT. You can ask it to explain. You can ask it actually for formulas and stuff like that. So those are two really practical pieces of advice for learners. Hope you guys are taking notes in the audience. And quick note to the audience, actually, great job using the questions tab. Keep that coming. We're going to have a great Q&A session at this rate if you guys keep doing that. I want to hear again from everybody in the audience. We've got another poll. I just want to get, where do you think your Excel skills are right now, on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm going to put my vote in here and we'll see. We've got a lot of people above average. Couple in the 9 to 10. Luckily, not a ton of people that are in the 1 to 3. So awesome, cool. So kind of middle to above. That's a great starting point. Fantastic. So let's get in the AI questions. Always come up, and I love that you guys brought them up here. If you didn't, they'd probably come up, and they probably already are on the questions tab. But how do you guys like the AI tools right now? Like, are they perfect? Are they pretty helpful, but you got to keep an eye on them? Are they like totally useless and a waste of time? Chris, maybe start with you on this one.
Okay.
Get your experience.
Yeah, this is a very good question because I definitely think I've been put in this situation a lot more, especially in my current job. I will say, I think for at least like Excel, whether you're using anything in spreadsheets, Excel or Google Sheets, I find that I primarily use ChatGPT for what I do. I would say kind of like that second part you said, where it's like it's helpful, but you got to keep an eye on it. I find most of the time, maybe about like 60, 70% of the time, I give it a prompt and it gives me the right answer. But sometimes it doesn't. So I have to really look into like, it might say, for example, if I didn't prompt it right and I just said, oh, sheet 1, column A, this, but it's like I didn't tell them the column. So it's like, okay, of course it's going to come back as an error. So I have to really make sure to give as much details as possible. Sometimes it doesn't work, but I look at it and I'm like, okay, like, no, I wasn't looking for this. Give me this instead. And then I get it. I really find for Excel, like it's very helpful, incredibly helpful, just because I find as long as you get prompted correctly, and I think I've gotten better at making the right prompts to know exactly what I'm looking for, give it the right information. Because you go into it very vague of like, give me this, this, and that, and it's going to give you a very vague response. So you got to really come in, give it good details, and know exactly what columns you're going for, what are you exactly trying to do. And I used it the other day where I had to do this crazy switch formula. It was insane, and I needed help. There's no way we've done it on my own. There's no way. So I'm like, okay, let me use ChatGPT to do it, and it took a little tweaks here and there, but within a minute or two, it worked, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is insane. Like what I was able to just do right here is so valuable to now what we were trying to do. We're trying to do some analysis of progression over opportunities and sales and whatnot. And by using that, we were able to know exactly the difference between certain dates and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, this is insane. So very helpful. I'm a huge fan of it. But you definitely got to know what you're looking for. So you can't just trust it blindly at the end of the day. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of equate it. I use it for SQL sometimes. And for me, it's like I've got the SQL foundation, and I might be looking for like some syntax help or something really quick. And I think it's pretty effective, not perfect, and I can evaluate because I've got the foundational concepts. Sonali, I'm curious what you think. So, and I think you're going to have to empathize with somebody who isn't you, right? Because you do have pretty good Excel skills. 9 or 10 is what I'm assuming you voted, But like that's somebody who's not really an Excel user. Do you think it's good enough that they can just go, hey, give me this formula and can use it effectively? Or do you think there's some level that you need to have like foundational skills?
I'm going to go with the lateral. Like you need to have some kind of foundational skills. In my opinion, ChatGPT is great for brainstorming sessions, not necessarily technical stuff, especially if you're just starting off and you don't have the foundation. You can use it to have a syntax, and I would still recommend going to Google, like looking at videos. For me, I'm a visual learner, and I know that about myself. So reading a long paragraph that ChatGPT wrote, it's not going to stick. I'm not going to be able to retain it. I'm not going to be able to apply it. So if I'm seeing videos on it, that's why YouTube would be my go-to when it comes to learning the technical component, especially if it's something I've never done before. But if you have the foundation, so I know I have a strong enough foundation. If I'm looking at a formula that ChatGPT provided, I'm able to see, is this actually going to work with what I'm trying to solve? If not, then I'll, as Chris mentioned, like give it a different prompt or a better prompt in order to get the solution that I'm looking for. Again, I still go for the visual knowledge. That's how I grasp it. Apart from that, I will always encourage to use ChatGPT, but do not become dependent on any kind of technology. That's my biggest thing. Do not become dependent on anything. If you do, you're kind of diminishing your ability to think on your own too. That's just my personal opinion.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's about right. And I love that you threw YouTube in there too. I do the same thing. If it's like a new concept to me or something I'm sort of familiar with, but I need to kind of pick it up from scratch, I love finding a good YouTube video from somebody who can explain it. I think it's a fantastic way to learn.
Or Maven Analytics. I also started watching Excel there too.
we're always there for you. Yes. Thanks for the plug. Question quick to the audience. Just throw this in the chat, and then I want to hear from both of our guests. Do you guys use Excel and Google Sheets? Do you think, and I'd love audience folks, if you can throw this in the chat, do you think Google Sheets is as good as Excel? Is it close? Is it nowhere near? Just curious to get folks' opinions, and then would love to hear from both of you guys, because I know that's something we talked about. And Chris, so I know this one was something that you had talked a bit about before, and there was maybe some pet peeves that came up. What are your thoughts on Excel versus Sheets? Are they totally interchangeable?
I mean, I know like for my role right now, I use a little bit of both, but primarily Google Sheets. It just seems like a lot of our stuff that we do is using the Google platform. So I've had to go in there, and I've used Google Sheets before in the past. I use a lot for personal projects or for anything I like to do, just because it's the collaborativeness of it. I could just share it with people, work on it together. It's really easy just for something pretty small, but I've had to learn a lot. I'd say the benefits is be able to collaborate. I mean, I've gotten on calls with people, and we've all have been on the same document working together, and be able to work right there and then. It's just actually pretty big. I will say that there are definitely some things I'm getting used to. Keyboard shortcuts are incredibly frustrating. I've had to learn basically again how to implement some of the things I've done, and it's not too much different, but it's different enough. It also might not help because I do this on a Mac, so I've had to learn a Mac and Google Sheets. So it's a whole process there, but there's parts to it. There's definitely some, there's no Power Query. Can't use Power Query in Sheets. That's a big issue. There's definitely some limitations when it comes to just how far you could go with it. However, the things you could do, your visualizations, pivot tables, your formulas, all translate. So that comes in fine. I actually find the visuals in Google Sheets to be a little bit better, in my opinion. I find them to be a little bit just more clean, and you do a little more with it. But yeah, I feel like to do your work, especially if you're an aspiring analyst, like the work you could do in Excel could easily be done mostly in Sheets. And I'd say the biggest thing is just not be able to have Power Query is a huge disadvantage. However, there's still lots of benefits to using Sheets. It's just there's just some pros and cons in there.
Awesome. Sonali, anything to add or build on that? I think you're also Team Excel.
I am definitely Team Excel. Just also because that's like the first tool that I was introduced to when it comes to spreadsheets. And it's easy to manipulate. I think they're going from Excel to Google Sheets. It's like I want to toss my laptop out the window. And I don't want to do that. Therefore, I will stick with Excel. But I tend to go towards Google Sheets when I'm working on like personal projects. So I'm obsessed with like personal finances. So that's what Google Sheet is for me. And then when it comes to Excel stuff, all work related stuff goes into Excel because for me, it's faster and it's easy to manipulate.
Awesome. Yeah. It's I think you guys are, excuse me, both pretty much in line with almost everyone in the audience is saying, they can do a lot of the same stuff, but Excel all the way. Who knows? Maybe that's just because what we have more experience with, but I would probably echo that. I usually find myself sharing data in Sheets with coworkers or for really simple things. But if I'm doing an analysis myself, like even this morning, somebody shared some data with me in Google Sheets and I pulled it down, put it in Excel just because I'm a little faster there. I'm a little more comfortable there. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And similar to a previous question, I want to hear from the audience, and then I'd love to hear from our guests too. So the question I'll ask the guests is, what do you think is one thing that you love doing in Excel that you think a lot of people in the audience might not be aware of? Like what's an awesome hidden feature? And for folks in the audience, kind of same question, or just like, what are some of your favorite things that you like doing in Excel? Throw that stuff in the chat. Would be great to hear from you. Let you guys think. And if, I don't know, does anything come to mind quickly for our guests?
Conditional formatting. That was the first thing that came into my mind, especially if I'm building like dashboards or any kind of visualization. Some of the KPIs that I need to report on, they tend to be very detailed, but they also, I want my stakeholders to be able to look at it and point out what they need to focus on. So I tend to use in a table format, a lot of conditional formatting when it comes to like using a color scale. I think that's very, very helpful. And I believe Chris is also going to mention, and I'm not sure if this is relatable just specifically to Excel, but like incorporating Power Query, I think that's a very powerful tool, especially if you're trying to cut back on time. I know I was able to cut back on like 50% of time that I actually spend on cleaning up the data, so which I think is huge. And of course, pivot tables. I think there's so many hidden gems within pivot tables that we don't know about. I didn't know about 2 years ago.
Yeah, there's so much you can do with pivot tables, and yeah, I mean, this morning I used pivot tables and conditional formatting. That was like the whole project this morning was those two things, and yeah. It got it done really fast. Chris, what do you think? Any hidden gems that you could pull out for us?
Now, my answer, I could almost guarantee no one's going to say this answer, just because it's something that's going to be available soon. Because I know like. Utilizing Python in Excel, because I know that's a feature that's going to be coming very, very soon to Excel, more like the Excel, Microsoft 365. I've been able to use it It's related to self-plug my LinkedIn Learn course in a couple months that I'm going to be doing. And just seeing just how it can incorporate you to work with Excel, and just seeing, for example, like let's do some of the things like conditional formatting, or even creating like a quick table from information you have, and just seeing how it's done using Python and Excel, the type of code that is applied to it. And you could just get your work done, as long as you know what you're looking for, from what I've seen so far, significantly quicker. And you can make adjustments significantly quicker. And I just really think that if you're someone who enjoys just coding in general, or just writing out what you want instead of maybe clicking here, there, this, that, like if that's your mindset, it's right for you. So I really think that when people start to see that, for people who are learning Python or want to implement it, they're going to absolutely love it. I really think they're going to absolutely love it. So I think that's it's a legit hidden thing, because it's not there yet, but I know very soon people will be able to see it. And for, like I said, it's really helpful, I think, for people who know a little Python, but may want to implement it into some Excel work, ad hoc requests coming in, this and that, be able to see how that could help your current work. So that's going to be something that's going to be really cool for people to get their hands on. I think it's going to be very, very interesting and helpful.
Yeah, that's an awesome answer. I don't think we saw that from anybody in the chat, and so you understood the assignment on that one. It's great. It makes me think of another question I'd love to throw to both of you. So when I started my career, a long time ago, you could probably see a couple gray hairs, but the first 5 years of my career, I basically just used Excel. I mean, I used things like Google Analytics, Adobe Site Catalyst, which was called Omniture at the time. So I used some other programs to get data, but in terms of like the slicing and dicing, I didn't know Power BI or Tableau. I hadn't learned SQL, Python. And I felt pretty good about my career progression for 5 years. In today's environment, do you think that is still possible to like just be, a quote unquote Excel jockey, or do you think you really need to have something else to pair it with? And what would you guys pair it with? Maybe Sonali, we could start with you on this one.
Yeah, definitely. And I am not stealing, but I agree with this idea. And I think I also read it on LinkedIn. And I don't know, Chris, if this was your post or someone else's, but if you learn one skill, it increases your ability to get hired, especially if it's with the data analytics. And then you add another skill on top, it's going to increase your ability to be hired and you qualify for more jobs. I think the more stack that you have, and I'm not telling you to learn every single stack because I would lose my mind. So the more stack that you have, the more likely you are to get hired. But you also have to remember, it's not just about the technical skills. It's also about the domain knowledge. It's also about the non-technical skills that you need to focus on. But me personally, in my journey, I started with not even Excel. And I am so thankful to a manager who took a chance on me, because she was willing to teach me everything that I know, and mostly everything I know, to build a sound foundation to continue to learn different skills. But for my tech stacks, I started with Excel. It did help me learn SQL better. If I started straight into SQL, I probably would have given up, very frankly, because I think there's so many similarities that you can use when it comes to knowing one skill that you're very, really comfortable with. You can easily transfer that knowledge into different tools. So with Excel, you can also get comfortable with Power Query, Power BI, and then also SQL. And then if you know SQL, I think that also transitions to Tableau, and then so on and so forth. Learning the foundation is so important, and I think people just want to learn Python right off the bat, and I don't think that's personally, I don't think that's a good move, especially if you're just starting out.
Yeah, it's a great take. I think in the example of the person learning Python first, it's like you have to learn about data structures and the business and this whole other thing, a coding language, where Excel is really, there are formulas and functions, but I consider it more like coding light. It's pretty basic and it's really well documented. So yeah, I think that's a great call out, and totally agree with, if you know Excel, any of the other pathways is going to feel a little bit easier to learn afterwards. So I think that's great. Chris, what's your take? Can an Excel jockey like myself, could I still survive in this climate, or would I have to adapt?
That is a fantastic question, because I was thinking about that, actually something like that a couple of weeks ago, where I remember my first job I had, the first day of job, I did a lot of my work in Excel. And I just remember keep going to my manager and being like, hey, like, is there anything I could do in SQL, Tableau, like anything? And I just had to. I wish back then I could almost like hit myself on the head and be like, just be be a little patient. Things are going to come a little bit. Focus on the work you do, not so much the tools exactly. But I will say that yes, in my role right now, it's very Excel, Google Sheet driven. 95% of work I do is in there. However, we're looking to incorporate Looker, like a BI tool, in a few months. Because of my experience working with Tableau, Power BI, I've done a little Looker just to get familiar with it. I feel like I could pick up on that tool pretty easily. So I really think that, I know some people who have used Excel their entire career and have very, very successful careers. And I know some people who want to learn everything. So I really think that, yes, you should still learn in your spare time. If you're in a role, like even for myself, very Excel driven, I'm still trying to enhance my skills and other tools on the side because I want to see if there's a way that those tools could help my current work. And also, you never know what could happen in a growing company. You might change roles. You might go somewhere within your own company. They use a whole different stack. You want to keep yourself in a position where you can keep progressing. But of course, SQL helped me with Excel. Like I could literally think of how so many ways of the exact code in Excel and how that could work in SQL. So I feel like you throw me in SQL right now, even though I don't use it that much, I can still get the work done, no problem, because I know exactly what I'm looking for. So I think that, yes, like you can't control exactly what your stack is in your current job, but keep learning on side. SQL, keep practicing, just it won't take too long to get decent with it, just learn to understanding the basics, intermediates of everything, and just keep yourself ready because you never know when it might be needed. And you stay fresh because, you're looking after yourself at the end of the day. Just look after yourself. And every job I've had has had a whole different stack. Every single job I've had. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. A lot of folks in the audience kind of echoing a similar point, like the progression. Viviana said going from Excel to SQL and then Python was a really good progression for her. Interesting question just popped up in the chat. I'm curious what both of you guys think about it. Do you guys have any Excel certifications to like help market yourself? And how do you view those? Sonali, I see you're shaking your head, so let's start with you.
I have not done any kind of certification, like official certification. I'm not against it. That's not something I looked into, and I haven't seen that come up be a necessity in my domain or in my role. This was something I was going to add right before this question was, pick the domain that you want to go into, even if it's not one domain, but have a handful of domain that you want to focus in. Read through job descriptions. I think that's going to be the best way that you can get ahead instead of just learning skills just because everyone else is talking about it. Look what's actually valuable in the domain that you want to go into. So review job descriptions and then work backwards into what's going to be important to you.
Yeah, I think that's great. And by domains, you're sort of thinking like, do I want to go into marketing or into a specific industry?
HR, or even if it's like you want to work for a specific company, I think that also helps. So like very common, like if you want to go work for Microsoft, learning the Microsoft, stack, that would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's that brings up another point that you said earlier, and Chris, you also kind of touched on it. It's not just about the tools. There's these other things. It's about solving the business problems. It's about having domain knowledge of the business, probably equally as important, if not more, than the tools to extract data is how you frame those business problems and how you take data and use it to effectively influence a business. Chris, curious what you think about the certifications.
Man, it's back to back amazing because these questions are like so great. It's making me really think because these are I don't have any certification. Yep. I've taken a million courses. I have like the completion certificates, whatnot, but I am a little iffy with it, especially for Excel. Like there are, but as Sonali said, like that's not a common thing that's brought up. Like Excel certifications, like that's not really something that's too popular. I know that's very more popular in like the BI space, like Tableau has one, Microsoft has one, Power BI. I think those are a little bit better because those are tools that they could branch off in also a lot of different directions. I really think that is important to understand that structure of that. But Excel, I also find that, certifications, I've looked into it too. I even looked at it not that long ago, and they have them, but I just felt like for how much I'd pay for it to have that on my resume, I don't think the value even is worth that cost to me. It can't hurt you. It can't hurt you at the end of the day, but I don't think that's going to be the thing that's going to get you over the top. It just all depends what you're looking for. As Sonali said, like, industries and domains are huge. Like, a lot of roles I've had, every role I've had has involved financial data. Very spreadsheet heavy industry, very much Excel driven. So that's why, for example, on my resume, it's very Excel driven metrics and everything I talk about there is very Excel driven.
Yep.
If you're going to some other industries, Excel is maybe just a small piece of the pie. You know what I mean? So it really comes down to that. So I think, like, if you're trying to get into like maybe some like a financial roles, a financial analyst, anything like that, there are definitely certifications for that. But it also kind of falls into like the almost like kind of borderline accounting area, which is kind of also something that's totally different. So I would say legit certifications like from Microsoft and those companies can help you. Of course, they always can help, but it's never a guarantee that's going to put you over the top by any means.
Yeah. I also, I don't have anything for Excel. About like 15 years ago, I got a Google Analytics certification and Google AdWords that were Google AdWords is kind of like Analyst adjacent, kind of a little more marketing, but it was still useful. I thought they were valuable for me at the time. It was kind of like I was young, I had extra time. The company was willing to pay for it. I thought it was like another thing to put on my resume. What was the real impact? I don't know. It gave me a structured way to learn these things. Maybe it helped. But I think I wish somebody had told me way back then, work on some projects and like make them really polished and then actually record a video of myself presenting that project and telling a business stakeholder what they should do based on the insights that I found, because like if Chris came to me and he's like, hey, I got this Excel certification. And then Sonali's like, hey, check out this 3-minute video of this amazing thing that I did and how I'm going to make money for the business. Sorry, Chris. It's just not a competition, right? It's like such a good way to market yourself. And I never did that back in the day, but I wish I did. And I've given that advice to a bunch of people. So fantastic stuff here. Well, let's go into Q&A and put these folks on the hot seat. When it comes to making visualizations in your job, do you use Excel or other visualization tools? And Sonali, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, mostly Excel. And we also have a tool called Smartsheets, which I don't know if a lot of people use it or a lot of companies use it. I know it's very project management heavy too. Yeah. But I've used tools like that and somewhat of Power BI and no Tableau as of yet. But that is something that I'm learning on the side just for personal projects, but very Excel heavy.
How about you, Chris?
Like I said, my current role is very Excel heavy. Like I said, I'm gonna be implementing some Looker on the side, but in previous roles, like I know my first one was heavy Excel, but also Tableau, taking up a good chunk of my data visualization side of things. My role after that was very Excel heavy, but then Power BI on the side. So use a little bit of both. And I think that there is a time and place to throw something together in Excel or put it into Tableau, Power BI. But it's also, I think, something that people should realize is it's not so simple. You're not able to just shoot up Power BI. Like, okay, here's a report. Like, there's a process to it. Like I know to get Power BI my last job, I had to like beg for it. I'm like, look, I need to enhance it. It took a long process to even get it. But I think that, especially in Excel, you can create some really solid visualizations that can get the job done. And also, it depends on your stack. Like, I can't go out right now and go get Tableau. I can't do it. I have to work with what I have. So you learn work with what you have, but those practices you learn with an Excel could translate very well into pretty much any other tool and stuff like that.
Awesome. Yeah. And I won't answer too many of these. I'll leave it to the guest, but I will give a 3-part answer for this one. So for quick and dirty stuff, I just use Excel. So easy to spin up a quick chart that I want to either look at something myself or share it with coworkers. And then if we're building ongoing reporting that we need to automate, I use a tool called Metabase. It's my favorite tool that probably most of you haven't heard of. It sits on top of your SQL database. And so it is SQL based. You're writing queries, and then it has built-in visuals. I love it, and it's a free tool, which is amazing as long as you can host your own instance. So it's great plug there. And then the other, I'd say at Maven, we're sort of like split in our internal reporting. If I'm doing the internal reporting, it's Metabase. If Aaron Perry is doing it, it's Power BI based. And they both they're both great. Some advantages each way, and sometimes that makes the decision who has to jump on it when we need something new. If Power BI is better or SQL's better. So awesome. Great question here from Mathili. How do you compare Power Query in Excel versus Power Query in Power BI in terms of usage? Either of you feel strongly about this one?
I'll give a limited answer. Quite frankly, I haven't had the opportunity to use Power BI and Power Query. Most of my work has been with Power BI and Excel. So hard to make that comparison. But for me personally, as I mentioned, a lot of data cleanup process that has been automated. So I don't have to go in and individually look for duplicates. And it's very easy to record that process. So it does it automatically. I just need to refresh the data.
Yeah, I'd say for me, at least from my experiences of using Power BI in my last job, like if you're going to be creating the report in Power BI, like if you're going to be using Power BI, it's pretty much, to me, it's the same. It's just like if it's going to Power BI, you don't do it in Excel. You just throw it in Power BI and do it everything there. You also could do all the work there and transform that into an Excel sheet as well. But of course, that makes no sense. So like I think it just depends on what the purpose of it is. If it's a quick like ad hoc report, or if it's a simply or a weekly report that just gets sent out via email or whatnot, just do it in Excel. But if you know for a fact that this process is going to be done in Power BI at the very end, then you throw it in there. So it's really the same. They translate the same. So everything you would do in Excel could be also done in Power BI, except it's just a little bit different, but it's pretty much the same thing. So it all ends up like, where is this ending? Is this ending in Power BI or is it ending in Excel? So it's, to me, my usage, it just would determine that, but might not be the best answer, but it's the same.
It's a great answer. Start with the end in mind. I love it. Here's a question from Catherine, and Catherine, shout out. Love that you've been in a bunch of these sessions lately and always come in with great questions. So Catherine is asking, what do you think about the long-term future of Excel with so many BI tools, AI? Do you think Excel needs to adapt? And, I'll throw in there, like, if you learn Excel today, are you still going to be able to use it effectively? And will that be important, like, say, 10 years from now? I know that's a long way to project. Chris, let maybe start with you. Sonali got the last one.
I mean, in my opinion, on the day I retire, Excel will still be in people's laptops and computers, and it will still be there and used. I really think that it's just the simplicity. Back to the beginning, the simplicity will always be the reason why people use it. People like me as a teacher would use it because I could go in there and do what I want with it. It's an open spreadsheet. I can do whatever I want. It's not that hard to understand. It's a Microsoft tool. It kind of translates well. I will think that one thing, yes, like Excel, I think will always be there, but it'll always be in its place. It's not trying to be something that's not. It knows what it's supposed to do. It's great for the quick reporting and to try and dive more. It's like anything financially driven as well. But for example, they're back to what I said before, the Python and Excel. They're trying to adapt and feel like, okay, how can we make Excel where everyone thinks it's this like random tool that it can't do that much, when in reality with Power Query and now Python, Excel, you could do a ton of work. You could do a ton of analysis within Excel. So I think that it's the first step into that. And I think also with Copilot being able to, I don't use that much at all, but incorporating Copilot into Excel, they're taking steps because they're just trying, it's Microsoft. They're going to try to stay in line. But I don't think they're going to do anything that's going to all of a sudden transform the entire tool itself. It is what it is. It's just going to find ways to enhance, not to completely revamp. So I still think it's great to learn. You always should be there. But like as BI tools get bigger, AI and stuff like that, there will be tools. Who even knows 10 years from now what tools will be out there? So it's always good to know Excel, learn how to analyze data within Excel. In my opinion, it'll always be there. And I think that learning it is never a waste of time.
Awesome. What do you think, Sonali? Is Chris crazy? Is Excel gone in 2 years, or?
Yes, Excel is going to be out the door. No one's ever going to touch it. Every single stakeholder is going to know how to read SQL scripts too. So, but no, I will echo what Chris said. I think it's not a tool that's going to go anywhere. And I love how he worded it, saying Excel is Excel. It's in its own lane. It's going to grow in that lane. It's not trying to be something else. And I think that's the advantage of it. And also have to keep in mind that non-technical people also use Excel. So it's not going to go out the window. Even if technology becomes really, really advanced, not everyone's on that board of like, I can't wait to use AI to do my job. Not everyone wants to do that. I don't want robots doing my job, quite frankly. I need a paycheck. But I still think it's a really good tool to start off, even if you don't end up using it in a professional setting. But we all know stakeholders might ask, can you export this in Excel? That will come up. That can come up. And you shouldn't undermine a tool just because there's another shiny object in front of you. It's great to learn it, but you also need to recognize it's not just for you. You're doing the work for the business.
Awesome. Yeah, I got nothing to add. I'm pretty well aligned with you guys. I think it's here to stay. So yeah, great question there. Here's another one from Pujita. Can you suggest some projects for beginners learning Excel to focus on learning by doing? If somebody wants a project, either of you have a great option or a great place to go for finding a good project?
Maven Analytics. Maven Analytics, you can find a lot of data sets. I've also used Kaggle, and I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. Or just Google, I want an easy data set. Or yes, you can use ChatGPT, give it prompt, because you can tell it, I want this domain, I want to focus on this domain, I'm working on a project, and I'm going to be working in Excel, and give it how many rows, how many columns you want, and it's going to spit out a fake data set that you can analyze. And thing with ChatGPT, you can also have it give you prompts on like, I'm your stakeholder and this is the question that I want to answer. So go ahead and use this data set to get that answer for me. And I think that would be a really good use case scenario for AI and also using Excel for projects.
Awesome. Yeah, I dropped a link to the data playground that Sonali mentioned. You can get that. So folks want to check that out. It's open. And with it.
I thought I froze.
Chris, how about you? Any other places other than Maven or Kaggle?
It's tough because I'm plugging it again, but like 90% of the time people ask for data sets, I say to Playground because it's just the Maven Playground data sets are just the most realistic ones and realistic, but you're able to like do some serious analysis with it. You know what I mean? So I think it's really great. But I found website data.world, I think is the name of it, has a bunch. Yeah. But I just find that even like website like that is you got to do a lot of like data sets are tough because
there's some good ones and bad ones.
Yeah. It's like going on YouTube. You're trying to find a YouTube video and it's like, oh, there's some good stuff and it's just a bunch of stuff. And when there's a lot of options, there's some good, some bad. So you got to, and it's tough because you're doing a project. You could download a data set and you're like, oh, this looks fantastic. You start doing work and you're like, wait, this is terrible. I can't really, this is too much. There's too much for a project. So it's like, it's really good to, I use Data World is good. And I think like Sonali said, ChatGPT is good too. Just make sure you prompt it well because I've used it a couple times to try to send me a data set for me to practice with. And it's good if you want to do a certain domain or something like that. But really make sure you're prompting it correctly because if not, it'll send you a pretty rough data set. But if I had to pick the two, Maven Playground and Data World are by far my favorites for finding data sets.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Sonali.
I'm sorry. I'm going to add something very tiny. Start small. Don't try to accomplish, big mountains right off the start because you don't want to create more barriers on your learning journey. Try to make it small and then build on top of it. That was the only point I wanted to add.
I think that's great advice. And I do appreciate the plug for both you guys for the data playground. I'll be the one to say it's a great solution sometimes. But it's actually not the best solution always. And maybe I'll quickly run you through that. So if you're a beginner and you just want like any data set that's probably pretty good and rich and ready to get going, and you want like some prompts as to what to analyze, the data playground is amazing for that. Like it comes with a handful of questions that we prompt you to answer. You could download it. You could get going in the next 5 minutes. So that's where it's really good. It's more niche. There's not as many data sets there because it's this curated list that we, the instructors, have looked at and created these prompts. So if you're maybe at the next level and like Sonali suggested, you want a specific domain because you're like, I want to work in hotel, operations for hotels, and you need like some great hotel marketing data set or a hotel bookings data set. You're probably not going to find something that niche on the data playground, but at Kaggle or data.world, I mean, they've got like hundreds of thousands it's crazy how many data sets. So if you need something specific, I would go there. They're really searchable. You can filter and stuff like that. So that's what I would recommend for different places. And let's see. And by the way, you can get also at data.world and Kaggle. I think they're both entirely free. You might have to sign up for an account, but like just you could do it with your Google and it's free. Eline has a question here. Lots of jobs ask for SQL. Are you saying that you could use Excel with Power Query instead? Oh, that's a great question. What do you guys think?
I guess
Chris, I think Sonali has gotten the last couple. If you want to answer that one first.
Fantastic question. I think this is my personal opinion. A lot of jobs ask for SQL. If I tell anyone, if they're trying to get into data, like what should they learn? I tell them, like usually the three will be like Excel, SQL, and a BI tool, Python. If it's not 100%, but in my opinion, but could if you want. I say SQL is probably the most useful one because there are a lot of jobs ask for it. SQL is I find that if you know SQL, you become way more valuable because you're able to go into databases and retrieve instead of like just Excel. You have sheets and everything like that.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that like Excel Power Query is good. Like if that's on your job and that's all you have, then yes, like that is what you have at the moment. If you have the ability with Excel and SQL, it just once again comes down to what's needed. Like I had SQL access in all my other jobs, but I've only had to go in there a handful of times to actually get certain data. So it just comes down to that. But also each job, it's tough because each job's also different. Some jobs will say exactly like just based off the description. If SQL is a really major part of it, you should be able to tell by reading that description. If it's very Excel driven, you should be able to tell right from there. So I think that with Excel, you learn Power Query no matter what. But SQL, yes, that's about equal. If you're trying to get into the field, you need to have SQL on there as well because SQL is going to be incredibly valuable when you get to interviews too, because most likely if you go in an interview, coding round, anything like that, most likely going to be SQL questions. But also, like Sonali said before, Excel, SQL are very, very connected in a way from a syntax or from the formulas and stuff like that. So,
yeah, if you can do a VLOOKUP and XLOOKUP, you pretty much know how joins work, Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's awesome. How about you, Sonali? Would you differ from that at all, or?
No, I will echo everything that Chris said. It's again tied into the job that you want, not necessarily. I could tell you, like, I've only used Excel and Smartsheets and Power Query in my role for 4 years. That's all I've used. I have not had access to SQL, so that's not something I've applied on job. But if I'm looking for a new job and that requires SQL, that's something I'm going to go learn. So look for the end in mind, the end that's applicable to you, and then work backwards from there. So if you have a job that asks for SQL, then yes, please go learn SQL.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's great advice. Yeah, I think the other thing I'll add on that is just like if you're at a larger company, you might get away with not having SQL because sometimes they build tools, analysis tools for non-SQL users. A lot of times it'll be potentially Excel based, or there might be other places you're getting data from. If you're going like really early startup, like I've been the third, fourth employee a couple of times at companies, there's no tools built for you. Like you gotta hunt for yourself. So being able to go into that database that already exists is huge. So it can depend like where you want to live. And, there's no wrong answer for that. Let's do one last question here because we're about time. If there's multiple formulas in Excel, Power Query, and DAX, and it's hard to remember them, do you think formulas are going to be asked in the data analyst interviews? Like, what should somebody be expecting? Do they have to remember the syntax? What do you guys think about that? Maybe Sonali, maybe start with you.
I have never been in an interview where they told me to read off Excel formulas or even SQL formulas. I've only had one live SQL assessment that I've ever done. But yeah, no one has ever sat down and asked me, I need to do this. How do you, what formula would you use? I have had one Excel related question, which was basically, do you know how to use VLOOKUP and pivot table? My answer was no, but I can learn. And I still got the job.
Awesome.
Because I actually did go back and learn. But no, they don't usually ask that. Again, my experience so far. And I think we need to get really comfortable saying, I don't have everything memorized. And honestly, your brain is not capable of retaining all that information right off the bat because we're not computers. We need to get comfortable saying that, and we need to get comfortable Googling, which is why having a strong foundation is important. As long as you have that, you're able to Google or ask ChatGPT and figure out what the answer is. And I hope the interviewers on the other end are able to see that you need to be willing to learn and go figure it out versus do you have everything memorized?
Great answer. Chris, anything different or anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, especially recently went on a job search like a few months ago. So this is very relevant. It actually was a future post idea I have was every time I've had a role that was very heavily Excel driven, anything with Excel, Power Query, anything like that, never been asked anything to do with formulas because they really just asked like how I used it. Like, how have you used it in your previous role? What have you done exactly with it? Types of projects you've done. And I would talk through why I use Power Query. Why did I put together this report? Why did I do this? Because at the end of the day, when I'm working, I got ChatGPT open all day. Like, I'm in there, like, can you help me with this? I don't want to sit around and for 30 minutes and figure it out. Let me use this to do it. And I think it's all about, I think hiring managers are understanding more now, especially for the last few years, that it's all about getting the job done and doing it right. We don't need you on the spot to know the answer, but can you get us the answer? That's it. Like, that's all that matters. So I think like if you have the right mindsets and understanding, you're going to get it right. You'll find the answer. And I think they could tell through those questions, those behavioral type questions, if you could actually get the work done. So I would not over stress about formulas and Excel or anything like that, because if they do ask you that, then they're just look at the wrong things. And I've never, over all the interviews I've had over the last 2 or 3 years, I've never been asked anything with formulas with Excel or anything like that.
Yeah, I think you guys are totally dead on. There's no point in this job where you're going to be locked in a room without the internet and expected to do the job. So like, why should an interview be that way? Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, folks in the audience, give some love to our guests here. You guys were fantastic. Thank you so much. Brought great energy, amazing tips here. We packed a ton into this hour. It really flew by for me. Yeah, would love to do this again anytime with you guys. And thank you so much for joining. Everybody in the audience, thanks again for being here. At the end, you'll redirect to the Mavens of Data page in case you want to join any of those upcoming shows. We'd love to see you. And hope to see you some of you next week. All right.
Awesome.
Take care, everybody.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.